In the 4th year of my contract with Bastian, his attitude toward me finally began to soften. I was so excited that I went to pick up the custom-made engagement ring, but on my way back, a car came out of nowhere. Next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital bed, and the moment my eyes opened, Bastian's anxious face filled my entire vision. My mind twitched with a sudden impulse. Who are you? I think I might have lost my memory. I had only meant to tease him, but Bastian stared at me for a long moment, his expression slowly cooling, until he said, in an even voice, "I'm just your college classmate." That single sentence felt like a bucket of ice water thrown over my head. That "just kidding" stuck in my throat and died there. The joy of seeing him was scattered instantly. We're just college classmates," I stammered, watching his distant expression, hoping, pathetically, that he would save me from this humiliation. After all, that very morning, he had wrapped me in the blankets and mouthed at my throat with the kind of intimacy only lovers share. I thought he had finally accepted my feelings. He responded with a soft eyes on his phone. "I heard you got hit by a car, so I came to check on you." "Oh, that's really nice of you," I muttered. My fingers curled tightly under the blanket. The ring box in my palm pressed sharply into my skin, sharp enough to hurt through the heart. Bastian glanced at me a few times, as if even that was an effort, but I noticed his once tense shoulders gradually relax. He sat for a minute, checked his phone again, then stood up. "Rest well. I'll head out." I wanted to stop him, but when I saw the look of relief on his face, my raised hand slowly lowered. Just before the door shut completely, through the crack I saw a young man tiptoeing to wrap his arms around Bastian's neck. His gentle voice slipped through the gap. "Bastian, isn't Soren losing his memory just what he deserves? If he hadn't thrown money at you, you wouldn't have suffered these past years." I froze. That was Jory, Bastian's childhood friend from high school, the person he wanted to fly across the world to find, right before graduating college. The name he drunkenly cried out the night I proposed our arrangement. In the last 4 years, he never mentioned Jory again. I thought, maybe he had moved on. Even when Jory returned a month ago, I brought him up openly. Bastian barely reacted, but now I understood. He was pretending he didn't remember, pretending he loved me. And the moment he realized I'd lost my memory of our agreement, he tossed me aside like trash. Trash, like I could be thrown away whenever he decided. My nose stung. My eyes blurred. I grabbed a pillow, intending to hurl it. The door opened again, and I swallowed my tears so fast it hurt. Haven stepped inside, his tall frame blocking the doorway. "Soren, I just saw that Bastian of yours kissing someone outside." Then he froze. "Soren, why are you crying?" Haven had always been my business rival, usually wearing the expression of someone who'd rather be anywhere but near me. But now he looked panicked. My brain twitched again. "I don't know you. I lost my memory." Haven surveyed me up and down, squinting. Then, smack, he slapped my face. "Who are you trying to fool?" It hurt, but what hurt more was how easily Bastian had believed me. Did he truly believe it, or had he been waiting for the chance to walk away? I sat there, stunned. Haven frowned and leaned closer. "Soren, did you really get hit, stupid?" I knocked his hand away. "Stupid? You're stupid. Don't touch me." I was just mourning a love that died before I even realized it. My injuries were mild anyway, just a concussion. 2 days later, I was cleared to leave. Haven begrudgingly handled my discharge paperwork. Then I climbed into his car. He scowled instantly. "Soren, if you're heading back to that apartment, I'm not taking you." He meant the apartment I bought for Bastian. The place I'd lived for the past 4 years. Haven had always been like this. Once, after a banquet, he agreed to drive me home. But the moment he heard I was going back to see Bastian, he dropped me on the sidewalk without hesitation. I sniffed. "I'm done with Bastian. I'm just going back to pack my things and move into my own villa." "Happy?" Only then did Haven reluctantly act like a driver. I assumed Bastian, eager to escape me, would have cleared out his things already. But when we arrived, every belonging of his was still in place. Even the kitchen showed signs of use from the night before. So he wasn't as absolutely detached as he wanted me to believe. I quickly packed my own things into a suitcase and dragged it out. Haven leaned against the doorframe the whole time, doing absolutely nothing, until my suitcase reached the door. Then he finally stepped forward and lifted it over the threshold with one hand. I gave him a look. "Oh, your arms suddenly grew today." Haven snorted. "I just don't want to go inside that place. It feels dirty." For the 10,000th time, I held back the urge to strangle him. Just as we walked toward the elevator, the doors slid open, and stepping out were Bastian and Jory, holding hands. Bastian froze for a second, his hand loosening instinctively. When his gaze shifted to Haven, something unreadable darkened his expression. What's the meaning of this? His tone was sharp, like a husband catching someone cheating. I glanced between Bastian and Jory, forced myself to drain every emotion from my face, and played dumb. College friends, right? I just heard my things were stored here, so my friend and I came to pick them up. I kept my head down and tried to slip past the two of them, but Bastian suddenly grabbed my arm, hard. A vein pulsed on his forehead. Soren, where do you think you're going? His eyes shifted to Haven, turning even darker. Going with him? I hesitated, and then something in my mind short-circuited. I reached out and rested my hand on Haven's neck. Yeah, he's my boyfriend. Who else would I live with if not him? You. Every face in the room went stiff. Jory whispered, Bastian. But after seeing Bastian's rigid, stormy expression, he fell silent again. I stared at Bastian, giving him one last chance. All he had to do was step forward, grab my hand, say I belonged with him, and I would have thrown everything else aside, even the contract, even the mess with Jory. Just one step. But Bastian froze. His gaze drifted sideways, and then he simply let go of my arm. Soren, you've lost your memory. Don't believe everything people tell you. Be careful you don't get fooled. The heat in my chest iced over instantly. I couldn't speak. Even my breathing turned unsteady. Then Haven gently pulled my hand off his neck and held it tightly. Who exactly are you calling a liar? With that, he led me away. I stayed silent the entire walk. By the time I snapped back to reality, we were already at Haven's home. I looked at him, forcing a wobbly smile. So, you're taking advantage of my amnesia to kidnap me? He opened the door. His eyes were deep, unreadable. You said I'm your boyfriend. Staying at your boyfriend's place, is that a problem? That was just a heat-of-the-moment thing, I muttered. Feeling guilty for taking advantage earlier, I added quietly, Haven, you're not seriously that petty, right? I teased you a little and now you're doing all this. Haven murmured something under his breath, then looked at me. For the next few days, you're staying here. Says who? He'd seen me at my worst after the breakup, and on top of that, he was my rival. Why would I live with him? Haven moved closer, dangerously close. Because I don't feel like watching you crash again, only to be the one cleaning up the disaster at your company. Or, he narrowed his eyes. Are you still waiting for Bastian to come back and patch things up with you? That crossed the line. Suicide? Reconciliation? Did he think I had no dignity at all? No way, I snapped. Then what are you afraid of? Move in. Fine. I'll stay. Haven, don't regret it. And just like that, thanks to his provocation, I ended up living in his home. His place actually fit my taste, simple but warm, not cold black-white gray. Light colors, fresh flowers replaced regularly. Honestly, it felt more comfortable than Bastian's. Not that I'd ever admit that to Haven. To get back at him for earlier, I dedicated myself to giving him a hard time. Like showering in his bathroom at midnight while loudly singing off-key. Or spending 2 hours making terrible food shaped like a heart and insisting he eat it. Or barging into his study during his international meetings and leaning close to his mic on purpose. If I wanted to mess with someone, I was unbeatable. At first, Haven ignored me, but after several incidents, his patience finally snapped. He muted his microphone, turned, and found me leaning close to his ear, still catching my breath. His sharp, handsome face was suddenly inches from mine. I flinched back, but he swiftly pulled me onto his lap, holding me in place. Soren, enough. That act you're putting on, aren't you afraid I might actually respond? I grinned, ready to tease him. Everyone knew Haven was married to his work and never indulged in anything else. But before I could speak, he slipped a hand around my waist. Not inappropriate, but close enough to startle me. A sharp gasp escaped before I could stop it. Flushing, I grabbed his hand and pushed it away. He raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. I meant to leave, but that expression was unbearable. So I reached out and tugged on the hem of his shirt in return, not willing to lose. He had a meeting. I didn't. The victor was obvious. By the time his interminable video conference ended, my legs felt like overcooked noodles and my whole body was sore from all the wrestling and pushing around. Haven carried me back to my room. I glared at him from the bed. You just wait. It would have sounded intimidating if I weren't lying down like a defeated cat. Haven paused at the doorway, and actually laughed. If you pull something like that again, he said casually, I'll leave my camera and mic on. Let the entire business world see how good I am at getting your attention. Haven could be ruthless, brutally so. Just from that last remark of his, I quieted down for a while. I knew he meant every word. He always did. Back in high school, I had reported him to our homeroom teacher for dating too early, and the very next moment, he marched in with the prank love letter I'd slipped into his bag and declared that I was the one he was dating. The punishment? In front of the entire school, I had to read a line from that ridiculous love letter, and he had to read a line of self-reflection after me. The photo of that scene is still pinned at the top of our old school's message board. Humiliating doesn't even begin to cover it, so I decided not to get back at him anymore. As a dignified adult, I'd beat him the proper way. In the business world, I'd acquire his company and make Haven work for me for the rest of his life. Coincidentally, the government auction I'd registered for was finally happening. I dressed to impress and headed out. The land up for auction this time could give me the leverage to press down the Moo Corporation if I managed it well. But the moment I arrived at the entrance, I saw Bastian. He stood there next to Jory, one in a black suit, the other in white, surprisingly coordinated in contrast. I'll admit, after a month of fighting with Haven, I wasn't thinking about Bastian as much, but seeing him again still made my heart jolt. It wasn't surprising he'd show up here. He built his company with my help, and I told him before that once I got this land, we could develop it together. I just hadn't expected, given everything between us, that he would still dare bring it up. Soren, Bastian saw me pause. After a moment of hesitation, he walked over. Soren, I'm not sure if you remember, but you once said you wanted to co-develop the land in the West District with my company. What? We'd already gone our separate ways, and he still wanted to partner with me? Do I look like someone who's eager to be taken advantage of? I raised a brow, just about to respond, when a heavy hand landed on my shoulder. Just a regular college classmate of Soren's, and you think you deserve a share of the deal? Haven's voice dripped with mockery. Bastian visibly stiffened, though he still tried to argue. Soren, this is something you promised. He's not considering it. Haven cut in before I could speak, pulling me firmly aside into a lounge room. Soren, if you want your company to go bankrupt tomorrow, sure, go ahead and agree to him. There was a sharp tension in his voice that threw me off. I wasn't going to agree, I muttered. It's just, I can't handle the land development alone. I do need a partner. You can work with me, Haven said suddenly. His eyes were darker than usual, so dark they felt like they could pull someone in, though I couldn't read what was behind them. I turned my face away, feeling oddly unsettled. Haven, don't forget, you're my rival. For the first time, Haven genuinely looked angry. That's only because you have terrible judgment. Soren, before you and Bastian started, whatever that was, were we really enemies? He stormed out after saying that. The auction soon began. I successfully won the land. I'd intended to look for Haven afterward, but he was nowhere at the reception. Instead, Bastian appeared in front of me, holding a glass of champagne. Soren, have you thought more about co-developing the West District land? Annoyance prickled through me. I understood that Bastian wanted something from me, but why did he think he had the right? During those 4 years of our arrangement, I owed him nothing, and after escaping cleanly because of my memory loss, he still wanted to come back and take a bite out of me? Do I look that easy to exploit? I deliberately looked him over. Bastian, if I'm not mistaken, your company isn't exactly large. He faltered. I lifted a hand and tapped lightly along the front of his shirt, not intimate, just pointed. To qualify as a development partner for my company, being a college acquaintance isn't enough. So tell me, what exactly can you offer? Bastian's expression darkened instantly. I gave a soft, humorless laugh. For a long time, I'd thought he wasn't someone who cared about money or status. I had only gotten together with him because his family had fallen into trouble, and the timing worked in my favor. But it turned out, maybe he'd only wanted an easy advantage all along. I turned to leave, but suddenly a cold splash ran from my head down to my shoes. Jory stood there trembling with anger, gripping a wine glass. You're just someone with a bit of money, how dare you insult Bastian like that? In the end, both Bastian and Jory were escorted out. My white shirt was stained with red wine, and my hair, perfectly styled earlier, was ruined. The scene felt eerily similar to that day in high school, only this time, Haven wasn't beside me sharing the embarrassment. Somehow, that annoyed me even more. I rejected the clean clothes my assistant bought and drove home. When I arrived, Haven wasn't there. I couldn't decide whether that was a relief or a disappointment. I headed straight for the shower, but when I came back out, the lights in the living room were off, and someone was sitting on the couch. The dense scent of alcohol filled the air. It wasn't mine. It was his. Haven drank? That was new. Curious, I walked over and tapped his cheek lightly. What are you? Before I could finish, my arm was yanked, and I lost my balance, falling onto the couch. Haven leaned over me, his presence heavy in the dim room. His eyes looked dangerously intense, like something raw and unspoken was pushing at the surface. You're drunk. I forced a dry laugh, trying to defuse the strange tension. But he leaned in closer, his breath warm against my skin. Soren, I knew you first. So why is it that the moment he appears, you can only look at him? His voice trembled with something painful, something frustrated. And why, even when I want to help you, do you still push me away? I told myself he was just drunk. When people get drunk, nothing they say counts. He'd forget everything tomorrow. Fine, fine, help me then, okay. I pushed at him. Haven, move. You're heavy, but he didn't move. Instead, his grip tightened, not in a harmful way, just enough to hold me in place. Soren, he murmured, voice low and unsteady. I keep thinking you're supposed to be mine. That line crossed a boundary. I had no idea how to respond. Haven didn't push further. Instead, he simply held me in a tight, desperate embrace, as if clinging to something he feared losing, and we ended up falling back against the cushions together, tangled in tension neither of us fully understood. It turned out that dealing with someone you actually know only makes things even more awkward. When I woke up the next morning, I didn't lay a single finger on Haven. All I felt was second-hand embarrassment from having almost crossed a line with him. I couldn't even look Haven in the eye. I fumbled around until I found a shirt, torn into several pieces, no less, and put it on as if nothing had happened. My voice drifted uncertainly, eyes darting around like I was committing a crime. About last night, we were both drunk, right? Drunk, so that means we're just moving on from it, yeah? The moment I stood up from the bed, my legs nearly gave out. I staggered toward the door, and Haven's voice came from behind me. It's not something we're moving on from. What? Haven walked over slowly, the faint red marks on his arms and chest. Nothing explicit, just signs that we'd grappled too much, stabbed at my eyes like needles. I said we're not moving on. Soren, I wasn't drunk last night. You should take what I said seriously. That was the first time I ever fled from him. I'd always prided myself on being tough, never crying, only bleeding or sweating. And between the two of us, Haven was always the one left a step behind. But at that moment, I honestly didn't know how to deal with him. I ran back to my company, sat at my desk with an extra cushion under me, pretending to be a model CEO for 2 whole days. On the 3rd day, Haven barged into my office. Soren, look at this. What is it? Scandal photos? His eyebrow twitched. No, a business partnership proposal. Oh, not scandal photos. That was good and bad. I opened the file. At first my mind was scattered, but as I read on, I became absorbed. Haven had put together a genuinely impressive proposal. Mutual benefit, generous terms for my company. If I collected 10 more deals like this, I could really acquire his corporation one day. This is something we still need to review carefully. After all, I was pretending to be calm, trying to sound professional, but Haven shattered my composure with one sentence. Does your chair still hurt to sit on? His eyes darkened with amused interest. He even leaned a little to glance at the soft cushion under me. I wanted to shove the cushion into his mouth. It's fine now, I snapped. You're not that. Haven tapped his chin thoughtfully. Then, should we continue tonight? I choked on my own saliva. Haven, I told you we're forgetting that night ever happened. You're a CEO, can you not cling to this? It's not something I can forget. His gaze was openly intense, like a wolf who'd just tasted its first meal and discovered it liked the flavor. Soren, you're single right now, aren't you? Why not give me a try? Why? Because he was my lifelong rival. A rival doesn't suddenly become a spouse. I was just about to explain this ironclad truth when my assistant walked in. Soren, someone named Bastian is here. He says he wants to apologize. Bastian? I glanced at Haven. His previously calm expression darkened like a thundercloud. My chair suddenly felt less comfortable. I was about to refuse, but Bastian walked in before I could. Soren, I have to make an appointment just to see you now. His face held an unusual kind of hurt. Once upon a time, I might have rushed to comfort him. But now, my instinct was to look toward Haven first. Great, it really looked like I was being caught in the act. Haven remained silent, watching me with a weighty, unreadable expression. I straightened in my chair, adjusting my tone. Bastian, you're just a college acquaintance. What gives you the right to expect special treatment? If you have business, make an appointment. If you don't, I'll call security. The warmth in his eyes faded bit by bit. He gave a strained smile. Fine, Soren. You've hardened your heart. He set down flowers and a proposal on my desk. I really did come to apologize today. And I brought the land development plan as well. Of course, it still came down to business. I flicked the proposal straight into the trash. Bastian, do you really think you're that important? Something I said before my accident. If I even said it, why would you take it seriously? Besides, I don't even remember saying anything. His expression crumpled. Soren, you really remember nothing? He stepped closer, staring at me. Then suddenly, something caught his eye. He grabbed the collar of my shirt and yanked it open. "What's on your neck?" "What was it?" "Oh, right, Haven's marks. And bites." I slapped my hand over my neck instinctively. Before I could react, a firm arm wrapped around my waist and pulled me back. Haven finally stepped in, his face frighteningly cold. "Bastian, do you call this harassment?" Bastian looked between us, realization dawning. "Soren, did you sleep with him?" The disbelief, mixed with a hint of hurt, was unmistakable. I dropped the pretense entirely. "Bastian, who I share a bed with is none of your business. You're the one who let go first." He froze. "You do remember everything." I did, and because I remembered, his actions disgusted me even more. I let out a laugh. "Don't act like you were some tragic lover. You and Jory were already getting close before my accident. You found out I lost my memory and couldn't even be bothered to explain. You just wanted to ditch me as fast as possible. Fine. I can forgive you for ending the agreement, but don't pretend you're doing me any favors. Come again and I'll have security drag you out." Right on cue, security entered. Bastian looked at the line of tall guards. He hesitated, then finally turned to leave. At the doorway, he looked back. "Soren, believe it or not, when Jory came back, I never planned on anything happening." "Oh? Then my amnesia gave you two the opportunity?" My chest tightened painfully, though I kept my face light. "Guess that makes me your matchmaker." He opened his mouth but said nothing. Then he left. I slumped back into my chair, sat there for a long while, unable to breathe normally. Then a large hand covered my eyes. Haven's voice was low, steady, warm. "Soren, that fake smile looks worse than crying. If you want to cry, then cry. Don't force yourself." Through the darkness of his palm, something inside me loosened. Heat stung my eyes, quickly turning damp. Even his hand grew wet. After a moment, I lightly pushed his hand away. "Get lost. That wasn't crying. My eyes were just cramping." After that day, Bastian came to the company several more times. He lingered downstairs a few times, and when he still couldn't see me, he finally left looking disappointed. I wasn't sure what he wanted anymore. All I knew was, after what happened that day, I truly stopped caring about him. It felt like those years of feelings I had for him drained away with those tears, never to return. Compared to Bastian, Haven was the real trouble. The collaboration project between our companies was about to start, and suddenly the two sides had far more interactions than before, which also meant Haven now had every reason to show up in my office. I didn't know what was going on with him. Ever since that night, he kept circling around me. Sometimes he came to discuss work, sometimes he brought me meals, sometimes he simply happened to be nearby and stopped in. He often didn't say much, just watched me with those dark eyes, watching long enough to make me uneasy. Nighttime was even worse. He wouldn't let me move out, but he also didn't behave like before. Instead, he was constantly present. A grown man, walking around the place half-dressed. Chest, abs, arms, always in my line of sight. When he worked out, he kept the door open, his breathing practically echoing in my ears. I was also a normal man with normal impulses. Waking up every day to scenes like this, it was torture. One time, I'd had enough. I walked into his study while he was in a video meeting, completely shirtless, intending to turn on his camera. If he insisted on acting like this, then fine, let the whole company see it. But the moment I touched the device, he pinned me against the desk. "Soren, don't tease me." The entire meeting ended in complete chaos. After everything was over, I was slumped over the desk, barely keeping myself together, yet still trying to sound threatening. "Haven, if you try tempting me like that again, I swear I'll actually broadcast it." Haven blinked slowly. "Soren, so you like that kind of thing?" I froze completely, overwhelmed. "Haven, what do you want from me? How were we supposed to stay rivals like this?" Haven was quiet for a moment, his eyes drawing me in. "Soren, I want to be your boyfriend. Is that really so hard to understand?" I was stunned. I'd seen what Haven had been doing these days, but I didn't expect him to just say it so plainly. I turned my head away, feeling uncontrollably warm in the face. Even my heart was pounding. "Haven, being in a relationship with a man isn't simple." His voice lowered, with a quiet laugh, pulling me closer. "Soren, I already chose you. Can't you accept me?" I didn't know the answer, so I ran. For the next few days, I didn't return to Haven's place. I randomly booked a hotel room and stayed there. This time, Haven didn't stop me. He didn't come to the company either. I knew he hadn't given up. He was waiting for my answer, but I was a mess inside and had no idea what answer to give. I always knew this path wasn't something to take lightly, which was why I never flirted with straight men. Even when it came to Bastian, I only made a move after knowing his orientation. As for Haven, Before 18, we were rivals and reluctant companions. After 18, sworn competitors. Now, something I couldn't even define. Had I changed him? But I hadn't done anything. He'd ended up like this on his own. In truth, maybe I was just too charming. Frustrated, I tugged at my hair, staring at a project document without absorbing a single word. Then my phone rang. Instinctively, I answered. Haven's name was on the screen. Soren, the investigation results on your accident are out. I blinked. I'd almost forgotten about the car accident. I was barely injured, and the other driver seemed careless rather than malicious, so I let it go. I didn't expect Haven to keep investigating. A quiet warmth rose in my chest. I cleared my throat. How did it go? It was arranged by Jory. What? Haven's voice darkened. After returning to the country, he wanted to be with Bastian. So he planned the crash. The hired person wasn't skilled, and you were quick, otherwise the outcome wouldn't have been so light. Don't worry, I'll handle it. He sounded like he was about to hang up, and I suddenly called out, Haven. But once I said his name, I didn't know what else to say. He waited a moment, then said, Soren, I told you I would give you time to think. When this matter is settled, can you give me an answer? I still didn't know what to say. He waited again, then let out a small, helpless laugh, and hung up. For the next few days, Haven remained silent. But from the company's lawyer, I heard that Haven was filing charges, attempted harm, conspiracy, enough to put Jory in prison once the verdict took effect. The lawyer hesitated. Haven asked me to tell you, if Bastian pleads with you, he hopes you won't agree. Bastian, pleading, forgiveness, was that what Haven thought? Did he really believe I would forgive someone who tried to hurt me? Did he put Bastian's importance that high in his mind? And why tell me this through someone else instead of directly? Did he forget how to speak? Talking about giving me time, fine, but not even a single word in days? No reassurance. Who would agree to anything like that? I suddenly felt annoyed. Was I some project he was waiting to bid on? Waiting for the submission deadline to come get the result? Haven's prediction turned out to be right. 2 days later, I really did run into Bastian. On my way back to the hotel, compared to last time, he looked exhausted. His usually crisp white shirt was wrinkled. When he saw me, something like shame flickered in his eyes, though his expression was gentler than before. Soren, how have you been lately? I frowned. None of your business. Shouldn't you be dealing with Jory's case right now? His smile stiffened. Soren, I won't pretend. Yes, I came because of Jory. He made a huge mistake because he wasn't thinking straight. He's already been punished. So could you let this matter go? He paused, like he had made a big decision. Soren, if you're willing to forgive him this once, I can promise you. From now on, I won't look at anyone else. I'll devote myself to you alone. Will that be enough? His gaze was sincere, but all it did was make me feel sick. Bastian, stop dreaming. You and I are done. Whether you want support or security from someone, I won't be that person. I'm a businessman, not a recycling center. Bastian's expression darkened. Soren, we were happy once. Didn't that matter? We were. But that small bit of happiness was something I paid too much for. And I'm someone who knows how to let go. It was the past. Asking me to go back? Impossible. Besides, someone else had already taken up space in my heart. I shook off his hand, ready to leave, but he still tried to hold on. Just as he reached for me again, a dark figure moved in. Haven pulled me behind him with a stormy expression, landing a punch that sent Bastian stumbling, then a kick that knocked him to the ground. He said no. Were you planning to drag him away? Bastian clutched his stomach, sweating heavily, unable to speak. I held Haven back and glared at Bastian. If you dare come near me again, I'll make sure your Jory never sees the outside of a cell. I pulled Haven away. Behind us, Bastian shouted hoarsely. Soren, believe it or not, I really did love you. Oh, really? Too late, because I don't love him anymore. We kept walking until we reached the small hotel where I was staying. Only then did I finally let go of Haven. I took his hand, the one he'd used to hit someone just minutes earlier, and looked it over with concern. Haven pulled it back, frowning. Why? Did you feel bad for Bastian because my hand got red? What kind of logic is that? I sighed and gently breathed on his knuckles. Does it hurt? He froze for a second before slowly shaking his head. You're terrible at asking for comfort, I said helplessly. His expression darkened even further. And, honestly, at that moment I felt like talking in circles with him was pointless. Haven was straightforward to the core, quick to get upset, quick to get jealous. Using metaphors on someone like him was just torturing myself. So I stopped torturing myself. I leaned in and pressed a kiss to his lips, simple and direct. Haven finally stopped being angry. He stiffened at first, then kissed me back with an intensity that left my lower lip tingling when he finally let go. When I looked up at him with slightly watery eyes, I asked softly, "Are you not giving me any time to think about us?" Haven blushed and turned away slightly. "If you want something from me, I'll give it. I don't want anything like that right now." I took a steady breath. "Haven, did you really think disappearing for days counted as giving me time? Were you afraid I'd slip away if you stayed around?" He didn't answer. I continued, "You're always like this. No wonder I couldn't tell you liked me back then." His entire face turned scarlet. How did you know?" "Well, I didn't know at first, but once the thought surfaced, everything fell into place." The way he scowled when he realized that love letter was just a prank. The photo in his room of the two of us writing that ridiculous apology. How he used to challenge me after graduation, not to provoke me, but to stop me from wasting my time on projects that earned nothing, all for Bastian's sake. Haven never said anything. He just acted. It had cost him a lot. But now that I understood, all I felt was a quiet sweetness blooming inside me. I hooked my arms around his neck. "Haven, why didn't you ever tell me? I wanted to focus on school. I thought I'd confess to you after we graduated." He paused. "But before we even made it through college, you were already chasing after him." Hearing Bastian's name still made Haven's face look like he'd bitten into a lemon. My chest tightened a little. "If you had come to me earlier, Bastian wouldn't have stood a chance." "Really?" Haven looked at me skeptically, clearly doubting that. Before I could answer, he pulled me into his arms. "Forget the past. He won't matter anymore, not now, not ever." He rested his forehead against mine. "Are you sure about this? About us?" I nodded and brushed a soft kiss on his lips. "Haven, don't ever turn your back on me. I want a future with you." He stared at me, eyes suddenly glassy. I panicked a little. Haven, don't look like that." Before I could finish, he lowered his head and wrapped me in a tight, grounding embrace. "I'm fine," he murmured, "just a little overwhelmed." He held on for a long time, steady and warm. After that, Haven and I officially got together. Jory's case was resolved quickly. He was sentenced and taken to prison. I didn't go to the courtroom that day. I only heard that Bastian went and watched Jory the entire time, then asked my assistant about me, only to get snapped at in return. Not long after, Bastian began to fade from the city altogether. He wasn't without talent, but he was proud to a fault and could never maintain good relationships. His company had only grown in the past because I supported him. Without that support, it slowly declined. 3 years later, I finally heard news of him again. Jory had been released from prison, and immediately picked a fight with Bastian outside. They supposedly ended up at the police station afterward. "How dramatic," I said to Haven with a laugh. "Fresh out of prison and already back at the station. Those two really can't stay quiet." Haven didn't laugh. He simply walked over and pulled me into his arms. "Haven, why do you still look like this? I told you, I'm done with Bastian." "I know," he muttered. "It's just, I feel bad for what you went through. And maybe, a little jealous. The hurt for my past. The jealousy for his own insecurity." I nodded knowingly. All right. If you say you're not jealous, then you're not. Now go make dinner. I want something good tonight." "Feed me first," he said, half teasing, half sulking, and leaned in for a kiss. "Haven." I tried to push him away but couldn't, so I gave up and let him kiss me deeply. Warmth spread through my chest, steady and soft. Every day with Haven felt a little happier than the last. And I knew, there were many more days like that waiting for us.
And that's the end of today's story, a roller coaster of love, control, betrayal, and the painful process of waking up from a 4-year-long dream. What struck me most is how the novel plays with memory, not just literal memory loss, but the memories we choose to hold onto, and the ones we pretend not to see. Soren's amnesia may have started as a joke, but it peeled back every mask in the room. It revealed who cared, who didn't, and who was waiting for the perfect moment to walk away. One of the strongest parts of this story is the contrast between Bastian's quiet detachment and Haven's raw intensity. Bastian always stood one step back, distant, hesitant, calculating. Haven, meanwhile, stepped forward even when it scared him. He showed up. He reached out. And sometimes, that's all it takes to change the entire direction of a person's life. But the novel isn't just about romance. It also asks a simple question with a painful edge: when love becomes a transaction, can it still be called love? Soren spent years giving, hoping, convincing himself things would change, and when everything finally collapsed, he discovered that sometimes freedom feels like heartbreak at first. If there's one weakness in the story, it's that some emotional turns come fast, almost too fast. The dramatic spikes make the plot exciting, but occasionally I wished for a breath, a moment to let Soren truly process the hurt before the next twist arrived. Still, the chemistry between the characters, the tension, the tangled loyalties, they all make this an addictive read. And now that the truth behind the accident is coming to light, the stakes are only getting higher. So I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think Soren should choose Haven, forgive Bastian, or stay completely independent? And why? Tell me in the comments, I'm genuinely curious what you think.